So you're trying to set up a studio and make it multi-purpose for your photo and video and YouTube work, but all you have is some spare space or a spare bedroom in your apartment. Well, I'm in the same position, and I'm going to show you what I did to turn my spare bedroom into this multi-purpose studio. So before I start walking around, just a quick rundown on what I do and what I use this studio for and what I need to have in this studio. So first of all, because it's the most obvious, I need it for a YouTube studio. And obviously for these talking head types of shots where I'm sitting down and talking to the camera, but also for B-roll shots, primarily product B-roll shots, because my channel is photo and video focused and I do a lot of videos on cameras and lenses and gear and that kind of thing. So by the way, if that is interesting to you and you haven't done it already, hit the subscribe button down below so you can keep up with all the videos that I am making on this channel. Secondly, I needed to be able to use it for my professional work, and I shoot photo and video pretty equally, primarily product photo and video, and primarily within the specialty coffee industry is what I work in. And because of that, I needed to be able to obviously shoot coffee. I also need to be able to make coffee and then be able to shoot the coffee, and also to be able to shoot the process of making coffee. And that goes for both my client work and also stuff that I'm doing for social media and that kind of thing. I also really wanted to have an editing bay in my studio. I've never had a space to edit within my studio before. I've always just done it like on a couch in the living room or something like that. But I started to notice that when I mix working and lounging space, I tend to be less productive when I'm trying to work, because then I'll just get distracted with chores or TV or just things around the apartment or whatever it may be. So I really wanted to have all of my work stuff hosted within the studio. And then lastly, I also wanted to be able to access my gear, because in the past I have had my gear like spread out across different camera bags and closet shelves and in different boxes, and just really didn't have an organizational system at all. And that slowed down the workflow a lot if I had to pull something out or look for something. So I wanted a way to be able to store my gear, organize it, access it quickly whenever I need it, and then be able to put it back easily when I'm done using it. All right, so welcome to the studio, and this is the door where you would enter into this room. And right now I'm filming on a full frame camera at 16mm ultra wide, so it is going to make the room look a little bigger than it actually is in reality. But if I remember, I'll try to put the actual dimensions of the room right here in text. But this is where you would come into the room, like I said, and as soon as you enter, there's this little kind of cutout right here next to the door, and that is where I put my editing bay. So it's literally the smallest desk I could find. It was an IKEA purchase, and you'll notice that that's a little bit of a theme here, the IKEA purchases. And with this desk, I really only need to have my MacBook Pro set up here and some hard drives, so I don't need a ton of space. So it worked out well to just be able to have that right there, and that's my whole editing setup. You'll also notice as we go through this room, these things on the wall, and these are kind of makeshift sound blankets. So the room is empty other than basically my gear and shooting stuff, equipment and that kind of thing. So there's not furniture absorbing sound in here. There's also hard flooring in this room, so the room is naturally very echoey. So one of the things I did to try to help cut down on sound is these sound blankets. Actually, they're just moving blankets, which are a lot cheaper than actual sound blankets and more affordable. And I have these hung up throughout the walls on the studio to absorb that sound. It has made a big difference already having these, but I do need to do more sound treatment in here because it is still pretty echoey, and you can probably tell now, especially with this lavalier wireless mic setup, that there is still a decent amount of echo in the room. All right, so now coming further into the room, so we entered back there and came just right across this front wall here. and we come to my gear locker. So this is the storage solution, and I really like this. First of all, I just like the aesthetic of it. Everything's out, but it's also super functional because, again, everything's able to be seen. I can just grab what I need, use it, put it right back when I'm done. Easy to get to, right at the front of the room. So this first shelf is where I keep my photography camera bodies. So the R is here right now. Typically the R6 would be right here next to it, but I'm filming with the R6 right now. Then on the second shelf, I have my C100 cinema camera, as well as some different mic and audio options. On the third shelf down, we have lenses, and then a couple things like quick release plates and lens caps and that type of thing. And then on the bottom shelf, it's primarily lighting gear. I also have some accessories that I need to be able to get to quickly, some lens cleaning stuff, that kind of thing. And also my HomePod Mini so that I can play music in here while I'm shooting and editing, which is really nice, at least while I'm shooting and editing photos. Obviously it's a different story when you're working with video because of the audio involved, but it's nice to have when I'm able to use it. And then here behind me, behind the storage locker, is the only window in this room. It is a very large window, like almost floor to ceiling. So what I did is I actually have 2 layers of blackout curtains over this window to cut down on the light that actually come in. There is still some spill light coming in around the edges sometimes, but it cuts down plenty enough to be able to get the dark, and really the dark room is more necessary for video. When I'm shooting photo in here, I'm using high-powered strobes, which I'll talk about in a second. So I can even have lights on, and typically do shoot with lights on in the studio when I'm doing photography. And I'm just cutting that light out with the settings in my camera. But for video, it's a little bit of a different story. The constant lights aren't going to be as powerful to cut down that light. So especially for video, this helps, again, taking out the majority, at least, of any sunlight that's going to come in during the day. All right, so now as we come into the center of the room, this is the main table, like, for almost everything. So I shoot my YouTube videos from behind this table. I shoot YouTube B-roll on this table right here. I shoot most of my coffee and product shots either on or above this table, around this table. Even shots making coffee, I can prepare the coffee and make the coffee and get those shots on this table. It is not the best table. It's literally just a dining room table that we used to use. We don't use it anymore as that, so I brought it in here to use it as kind of a product table and to shoot all the stuff I was talking about on. It works. Not the best, but it works. And while we're here, you've probably seen throughout some of these shots things on C-stands. So I have a few C-stands in this space. Right now I have 2 holding up each of these light modifiers that you see here, the 2 soft boxes. And I've heard a lot of different recommendations versus not recommending C-stands, and I personally absolutely love C-stands. I do have, you've probably also seen a few of like the cheaper light stands around. Those certainly have their place. They're good for throwing up smaller, like pocket RGBW lights without modifiers and that kind of thing on them. They do have their place, they are useful, but I absolutely cannot use them for something like this big softbox. Whereas a C-stand, I feel very comfortable getting this big softbox into whatever even weird angle I want to have it in. Of course, learn to use the C-stand properly, but even with this big 38-inch parabolic softbox, which I love to use, I don't have any worry that as long as I'm using it correctly, it's going to fall over or drop it or anything like that, which would be absolutely devastating to me because I love this softbox. And since we're speaking about softbox and lighting modifiers and lighting in general and what goes on the C-stand, I have right here in this lighting modifier right now my Flashpoint Explorer 600 Pro / Godox AD 600 Pro. And I absolutely love this light. This is my main light now for some time that I've been using for all my photo stuff. It's powerful enough and versatile enough that I can use it in something like this giant softbox and still get enough power from it to light the subject in the way that I want. Again, I really like this modifier. I don't use it for everything, but I do use it for a lot of stuff. And paired with that Explorer 600 Pro, I have plenty of light coming through there to get the look that I want from that. All right, so now we're in the opposite corner of where we started. So directly across from here is the entranceway where we came in. And as much as I love everything in this studio, this is probably easily the space that I am most proud and excited and happy for. And that is my brew bar. And this is a dedicated brew bar, which I've never had before, which is really nice. Before, I've always had to make my product table kind of double as a brew bar and a product table. And so I would often be having to move everything off, put it back on. Even the espresso machine, I would have to take on and off constantly, or move to the side, get out of the frame, and that kind of thing. And that was really frustrating and time consuming. This I love. So it's based on an IKEA dresser. It has all of my brew equipment, not all of my brew equipment actually, but enough of my brew equipment to be functional up top here. So the espresso machine's here, grinders are up here, hot water kettle is over here. So everything that I need to have pretty stationary can be stationary up here. And then I also have all three of these drawers down here filled with coffee gear. It's a lot of coffee stuff, but if you can't tell, I'm kind of a coffee nerd. And having this space to be able to brew on a daily basis without having to move anything around and pull things out of the way and worry about them getting in my shots when I'm trying to work is amazing. And then also it's a space where I can shoot here on the brew bar if I need to or want to, but I can also very easily take things from here over to the table, which is just a couple feet away, and shoot on there if I want to as well. Also, again, with the drawers, some very nice storage for someone who has probably way too much coffee stuff, but definitely a lot of coffee stuff. That helps out a ton. All right, and then we just moved along the back wall from the brew bar over here, and that brings us to the last spot in the studio space, and that is this shelf right here. And really this shelf is just primarily set decoration for my YouTube studio shots. So I have some of my older camera gear that I don't really use anymore on here, and then just some cool stuff to kind of add some of my personality. And on the top two shelves here, at least, the bottom two shelves don't show up in shots, and I'm not showing you them now because that tends to be where I just throw A-clamps and random accessories and stuff that I'm not using, or right after I finish with them that don't really have a place in here yet. That's something I still need to figure out a little bit. So honestly, those bottom two shelves are just huge clutter areas of things that I need and use, but don't really have a place to put up yet, like I said. But that's it. That's my studio space. So I hope you enjoyed the tour. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about my studio, if you learned anything that was maybe going to be helpful to you in building out your studio, or maybe changing around your studio ideas. If you are looking for any of the gear that I mentioned or that I'm using in my studio, I will have links down in the description below. There will be affiliate links. If you purchase through those links at no extra cost to you, it will help support this channel so that I can continue making videos for you guys. Thanks. See ya.
You gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find what you love and excel, yeah. Push and pull and repel any hate, go create what you want, feel compelled, yeah.